out the time to join us on this call. My name is Samuel Oladipo, and I would be taking today's presentation. I don't know if we can just wait for a few more minutes, more like a minute, just for others to join, because I can see that people are beginning to join the call. Okay, so while we wait for others to join, the purpose of this call is to intimate our clients on the progress and the status of the Ghana bond restructuring. As we might be aware, there's been a number of developments in recent times on that, and we thought it that wise for us to bring our clients up to speed, especially those exposed to the Ghanaian Eurobond. We apologize for not having started yet. We are just trying to wait for a few more minutes, more like in the next 1 minute, we would begin while we wait for others to join. This is 102. By 103, we would start the session. For joining this call once again. My name is Samuel Oladipo, and I would be taking the presentation for this session. And the purpose of this gathering of this meeting is to discuss the progress status on the Eurobond restructuring by the Ghanaian government. I think before we dive into the topic of the day, it will be very important and beneficial for us to look at what has transpired before now, or possibly what led us to we have today. Okay, apologize for that. So to continue from where I stopped, in the year 2023, Ghana approached the IMF for an intervention, on how to get out from the situation where they are. And in May, we saw that an agreement was reached between the Ghanaian government and the IMF, where the IMF board actually approved a 3 billion extended credit facility to them. So following that, we've seen a number of activities because the facility was actually given out following certain agreements that the Ghanaian government had to commit itself into. So, and part of them was largely due to part of the was to painful action of the payment of coupons in the year 2022 amid the high debt burden. The economy of Ghana was in a state of quagmire. The situation of things on ground were not as impressive as they are today. But we can comfortably and conveniently say that things have improved on ground. Following some key decisions and strategies that have been taken, and a number of them we can point there can actually be itemized here. We'll just try to let us know that the Ghanaian government is getting back on its feet, and we're beginning to see results on some of the activities and some of the reforms that they've taken. A very notable one is we can see that the Ghanaian cities is beginning to be very stable. In the year 2022, I think the economy, the currency was very volatile in their currency, as the Ghanaian cedis, when compared to the US dollars, has gained some level of stability. We've just seen the volatility of about plus or minus 5 to 7%. Also, speaking of the inflation, a part of the issues they had then was the high inflation. They were battling with serious high inflation. And in December 2022, the inflation was roughly around 54%. And currently, Ghana's inflation rate stands at 23.1. Also looking at their GDP growth rate against the backdrop of a budget of a budgeted GDP growth rate of 1.5, we can see that in the year 2023, Ghana had a GDP growth rate of 2.8%. All these indicators or all these variables are actually pointing to one direction, which is that the economy of Ghana is beginning to rebound. So going back to the facility granted by the IMF, we saw that a number of decisions were taken, and part of those decisions are agreements in principle that the government brought us to where we are. The issues Ghana had led to the suspension in getting back on track. So just not not to waste so much about time. We'll be looking at what is expected of us, or what is the good news, the sense there, and then the options available to the bondholders. And most importantly, I know a number of us are the opting or probably opting for any of these two options as they so wish. And the important concession here is that it will be providing some form of debt relief to the government, and also to enable the government of Ghana, to get back on track, which has been the focus of the whole arrangement they had with the IMF. So, and then we expect that this entire process of the agreements in principle should be concluded within the shortest time possible. By our projection, we expect that before the end of Q3 2024, we should come, the entire process should have been concluded such that all Eurobond holders will know what courts. Another important factor on this and the bond, an effective interest rate, that is an effective coupon rate, would be applicable to both bonds. And from January this year, January 2024, up until July 2028, from July 2028 till the maturity date for this bond, you would receive a 6% coupon rate on that. One bond, the coupon rate will effectively zero. That means no coupon will pay. Sorry, yeah, no coupon will be paid on that. Likewise for the PDI bond, it will be 0% to mature in July 2029, while the bond long is due to mature in July 2035. So effectively, if you are opting for the DISCO option, the bond to be issued to you would mature in July 2035. But another interesting point under here is that the government of Ghana would begin to pay down on those on those bonds. Not that you have to hold them up until maturity when you would eventually receive your principal amount. No. What will happen is the government of Ghana would amortize the bonds over a certain period of time and begin to pay down at each in January 2026. So that means from January 2026, you will start bond up until July 2029 when the bond eventually matures. So effectively in terms of cash flow, it means that you would receive from January 2026, in addition to the coupon of 5% you would get on both the bond short and the bond long, you would also receive the installmental payments on the bond short from January 2026 till the bond eventually matures in July 2029. While for the bond long, date of July 2035. Another question that might be running through your mind would be, what would be the modalities for the repayment? Would it be paid equally across the period? So they also thought they also thought ahead in terms of that, such that for the bond short, we have 8 periods from January 2028 till July 2029. That is the coupon payment periods, the July and the January and the July. January 2026 to July 2029, there would be 8 effective payment periods. And over those periods, you would receive equal installments on your bond. Whereas for the bond loan, there will be 12 effective payment periods from January 2030 to July 2035. So for the first 10 periods, you would receive 7.8% of the value of your bond as your instrumental payment. While for the last 2 periods, you would get 11% of face value of the bond loan last 2 periods. Where payment bond be amortized over a certain period of time, and then instrumental payments would also begin on that. Same thing for the PDI bond. While the down and that of bond long would begin in January 2030, the instrumental payments on the down payment bond would begin in July 2024. Is expected to begin in July 2024. So that means from this month, you are already due to receive your down payment bond in cash. Whereas for the PDI bond as well, the instrumental payment would begin in July 2034. But effectively, let's take note. I had mentioned earlier that an effective nominal haircut would be charged or would be applied on the face value that you currently hold. We'll do some practical analysis of all this so that we can have a better understanding of that. So, but for the power option, that is, if you choose to go for the DISCO option, those are the characteristics, the parameters of that option. While for the power option, there's a cap of $1.6 million. However, I think it's nothing to really worry about because we are very certain that this cap can be exceeded. You can't exceed this cap, so it's really nothing to worry about. But they've actually set that cap that for people that will opt for the power option, you can't exceed 1.6 million. For the consent fee, also it applies. 1% consent fee will be paid to you as a form of getting your consent for them to restructure your current bond holdings. Like we mentioned earlier, if you're opting for the power option, you would receive 2 new bonds in addition to the PDI bond, which are the bond par, the down payment bond, and then the PDI bond effectively. But the major difference between this par option and the disco option is there will be no effective nominal haircut on this, which means you would eventually receive the full nominal value you owed when the restructuring is completed. So you taking a 1,000 face value as an ideal example. If you currently hold 1,000 face value of a Ghanaian Euro bond, you will receive a bond par of $960 and a down payment bond of $40. The interesting part here is the coupon rate. Recall that under the disco option, effective coupon rate is 5% up until July 2028, where the coupon rate would then increase to 6%. But for the par option, your interest rate would be 1.5% all through the period. So that means you would receive 1.5% as your coupon on your 96%, on your 960,000 nominal value up till the bond eventually matures in January 2037. That's another difference between the two bonds. The disco option, the bond to be issued to you in disco option, if you opt for the disco option, would have a maturity date of July 2035, while if you opt for the par option, the maturity date of bond to be issued will be January 2037. And also, the amortization on this will start in January 2036, as against for the disco option that would begin in January 2026. So that means there'll be a 10-year gap between when the amortization on the disco option would begin and the amortization on the par option. So the amortization on the par option would only run for just 3 periods. That will be January 2036, July 2036, and January 2037. So you would receive the repayment of the principal over those 3 periods. For the down payment bonds, the same thing applies there. The installmental payments will begin in July 2024 and it will end in July 2026. The PDI bond applies July 2024 and January 2030. So now, for us to show all these things in real terms, for you to possibly make a decision, know what your cash flow would be, we've done a simulated analysis using a $100,000 face value. Let's say, for instance, you currently owed a $100,000 face value of Ghana Euro bond, and you've decided to opt for the disco option. What would be your cash flow over the years? So like I said earlier, there will be an effective nominal haircut of 37%. And then a bond short will be issued to you at 24.2%. A bond long will be issued to you at 34.8%, and a down payment bond at 4%. So effectively, you will receive a bond short worth $24,200, a bond long worth $34,800, and a down payment bond worth $4,000. So in total, you would receive $63,000.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
$1,000 bond down when the exchange is actually completed. So effectively, of $37,000. So like we said, from July 2024, effective payment date up until 2028, a 5% interest rate will be applied. So that means on your bond short and your bond long, total principal of 59,000. So that means 59,000 from July 2024 up until July 2028, when the interest rate would eventually increase to 6%, and that would run till the bond eventually matures. Recall that we also stated that from January 2026, the bond short would be amortized and a down payment, instrumental payments would begin. So from January 2026, as captured here, you would start to receive $3,025 as an instrumental payment on the bond short. Recall, on the bond short, the bond long continues while the bond short will be amortized over the 8 periods. So that means you would receive an equal instrumental payment of $3,025 from January 2026 up until July 2029. when the bond short would mature. And as you can see here, by the time you get to July 2029, the bond short the value of the bond short would have reduced to $3,025, which would eventually be paid out at the end of the bond, at the maturity of the bond. While for the bond loan, we mentioned earlier that the first 10 installments will be paid at 7.8%, while the last 2 installments will be paid at 11%. So that means effectively from January 2030, in addition to your coupon, you would be receiving an instrumental payment of $2,714.40 up until July 2034, where it renews that you would receive. Recall that the effective payment period would be January and July of every year. So that means in July 2024, if you are a current bond holder, you hold 100,000 face value of a Ghana Euro bond, you would receive effectively $2,707.97 when the first payment is made, and that would continue up until January 2026, when the instrumental payment on the bond short, your payment, the amount you would receive or you would begin to receive will change. Your first instrumental payment will be $5,752.52, and that continues like that till the bond eventually matures. So effectively, upon maturity of the bond, you would have received a total amount of $90,055.97 effectively at the end of the bond. But recall that this $90,000 will be paid to you over the period. So that means you can get to receive the money today and possibly invest it in something else you would like to do, or possibly get to make a decision on that. Unlike the other option where the repayment would not begin until January 2036. Then the total amount you would eventually receive if you opt for the discount option will be the amount of the funds, the inflows you would have gotten, and then the consent fee that will be paid to you now, which will then give you a total net receivable of $91,055.97. So effectively, if you're a Ghana bond holder, Euro bond holder, and you have 100,000 face value, the amount you would get at the end of the arrangement will be $91,055.97 if you opt for the disco option. But one good thing about the disco option is it avails you the opportunity to receive your money now than waiting till the next 10, 15 years. That'll be in January 2036. Although the money will be paid to you over time, but at least you're very certain that something is coming in, unlike the other option. So quickly, we'll look at the PAR option. The PAR option, we had said that you will receive 2 new bonds in addition to the PDI bond. That means 3 bonds, but there will be no haircuts. You won't suffer any haircut here. You would receive a PAR bond of $96,000 and a down payment bond of $4,000. So effectively, you would receive a new set of bonds that would worth the same value you had prior to the restructuring. Then the cash flow would be your PAR bond and your down payment bond, which is your PAR bond, which will be at an interest of 1.5% will be applied on. You would receive effective interest, more like an effective coupon of $720 over the period. So that means for your $96,000, you will get $720 at every coupon payment date. Unlike the other option, whereby the amount you would get will be way better than this, obviously. Then by the time you get to January 2036, your principal will be amortized, and you will then begin to receive an installmental payment across 3 periods of an equal value. So that means you would get $32,000 in January 2036, $32,000 in July 2036, and same thing, the final amount in January 2037. Summary of your total cash flow. At the end of the period, okay, yeah, the PDI bond, recall we had said that for the PDI bond would be issued to the tune of the coupon that you've missed. So let's say, for instance, now you hold a 100,000 face value and the coupon rate is say 10%, you would have missed a total coupon of about 10,000. So the $10,000 now will be spread over the period. So you would receive $452 from January 2020, from July 2024 up until January 2030. So for a bondholder that has decided to opt for the power option, at each payment period, you would receive, for the first period, you would receive $1,972.92 as against the other option where you can get as high as $5,000 for the same value of bond. Then at the end of this whole arrangement, if you opt for the power option in January 2037, you would have received the total amount of $123,435.01. When that is added to the consent fee that will be paid to you, the effective amount receivable would be $124,435.01. But it is worthy to note that the large portion or the significant portion of the inflow for the power option won't come to you until January 2036, as against for the disco option, where you would start to get significant amounts as soon as possible. So from our own standpoint, looking at the time value of money, we strongly believe that the disco option is a better option from our own standpoint, because by the time you try to discount the eventual inflow of $124,000 today, it won't really make so much sense when compared to the $91,000 that you would have received if you had opted for the power option. But at the end of the day, the ball lies in the court of the investor to decide. So it is just for us to let you know what the structuring entails, what the various options that have been presented to us by the government of Ghana, and then for you to make a decision as to whether you would opt for the power option or you would opt for the disco option. So at this point, come to the, okay, well, there are some other terms that has been embedded in the clause, and I think these are very important and these are very, very critical, simply because we know that certain things, also certain unforeseen circumstances might come up later in the future. But some of the clauses that have been included is the most favored creditors clause. What that simply tells us is that they've informed us, or they've assured us that no single creditor, would receive a better treatment than the other. That means there'll be equity, irrespective of who you are, the kind of bond you're currently holding, and the value you currently hold. So all creditors will receive equal treatment, equal net present value terms under the arrangement. Also, for disclosure, it has been agreed that the government of Ghana will continue to publish its public debt information semi-annually, so that creditors would see in true position and in real terms what the books of the government are. And then there's an estoppel provision, which I think is very, very critical and very, very important. And this means that under no circumstance would any court in Ghana, most especially the Supreme Court in Ghana, be able to reverse the clauses or the various agreements in this, or whatever has been agreed upon as a result of this arrangement. So that means if a new government comes on board, and I think the government of Ghana is due to hold another election this year, later this year, probably there's a change in government, the new government comes on board and is looking at altering the agreement that has been reached, a clause has been embedded in the agreement that would not happen. They cannot change or they cannot renege on what has been agreed upon. That should give some level of confidence and some level of comfort, to the creditors as such. So with this, we've come to the end of the presentation. We hope that you've been able to get more clarity on what the restructuring is all about, and that would help you make an informed decision whether you would opt for the disco option or you would opt for the PAR option. So thank you. If there are questions at this point, we would be willing to take them and provide clarity where needed. If there are questions, please, you can indicate by a raise of hand. And okay, we have a question here. Would there be a haircut on the fees payable to LAM and under interlocutors? We can't say, it is something that we agree upon, considering the dynamics of this arrangement. We know that it is not a sweet one for the creditors. So definitely some form of concessions would obviously be agreed upon. That we can share at this point. But it's an ongoing conversation. It's something that would have to sit down and probably reach an agreement with our clients. So we can't say whether or not there would be, but one thing I can confidently state at this point is that there will be consensus where necessary. There would be. If there are questions, you can use the raise hand icon. You can unmute, right? You can unmute and ask your questions, or you can use the chat box. Okay, is this just for the capital? What about the arrears, the coupon arrears? Okay, no, not just for the capital. I had mentioned earlier in the course of the presentation that let me just go back to the slide that a PDI bond would be issued to all bond holders, whether you opt for the disco option or you opt for the PAR option. Either of the option that you decide to go for, you would receive a PDI bond. And the PDI bond simply represents the coupon that you've missed. That is the accrued coupon that you should have received that you never got. And you know that the suspension of coupon payments was from started in June around October, November 2022 till so from that period to 31st of December 2023, the coupon arrears that you are entitled to but you never got would be converted into a new bond that would then be issued to you. So let's say, for instance, for that period, you should have received a coupon of, let's say, $20,000, but you never received that. The new bond will be issued to you worth $20,000, and it will be paid to you over time. So the value of that bond will be amortized, and it will be paid to you from July 2024 up until January 2030, as highlighted here. Let's say, for example, now you offer the disco option, and the total value of your coupon that you should have received is $5,435. That would be issued to you as a bond, and it will be amortized over 10 years. So okay, yeah, and I think there's an haircut too. I forgot to mention that. As you can see from here, on the PDI bond, there's an haircut of 37% on it. So an haircut of 37% will be applied on the PDI bond. So let's say, for instance, now the value of your coupon that you should have received is $10,000, and after an haircut of 37% is applied, so that means a new bond will be issued to you worth $6,300. So the $6,300 will be amortized over 10 years, and you will start to receive your instrumental payments from July 2024. Could you share a calculator template of the PAR option? Okay, sir. Yes, we will. We got your email on that. We would respond to you as soon as this session is over, so that you can also do some permutations on your own. We will, sir. We will. Okay, we have someone who wants to ask a question. I think you can unmute and ask now.
Thank you very much. When will the entire process be concluded, please?
Okay. All right. So effectively, this process, this whole arrangement is to take effect from January 1st, 2024. That will be effective date. January 1st, 2024. Where so that the first payment date would be July 2024. So, and this is July already. The process is still, the entire restructuring is still is still in process. We've not concluded, that has not been concluded, but it is expected that the entire arrangement will be concluded as soon as possible. Our projection would be before the end of Q3 2024. This should have been completed. But the next question would be, what about the payments for July 2024 that should have been disbursed? We also want to believe that everything will be paid in arrears. So we know that from July 2024, you are due to receive a payment, but because of the whole arrangements, the structuring, the exchange, which is still ongoing, that cannot happen. So once that has been concluded, the arrears for the period that has been missed would eventually be paid with the next payment. Okay, there's another question. For the disco, we get an haircut on both the capital and the coupon arrears. Yes, that's correct. So for both the bond short and the bond long, a 37% haircut will be applied. And then for PDI bond as well, a 37% haircut would be applied. The PDI should be 6 years rather than 10 years if the information sheet is right. Yes, that's correct. Thanks for that. So yes, it's 6 years. I think we have someone who wants to ask another question. Okay, you can unmute and ask your question, please.
Okay, my question is, how will the Ghana 2030 bond be treated considering the current received coupons?
Okay, yes. Ghana 2030 bond is actually a unique bond. Unique in the sense that it is guaranteed by the World Bank. The World Bank has guaranteed that the 40% of both the principal and the coupon on the bond, such that while our coupon payments was suspended on all other bonds, our Ghana 2030 bond holders continue receiving their bonds. So, but the arrangement that has been proposed is that the present value of the 40% guaranteed by the World Bank would be paid to all bond holders today. Then the 60% that was not guaranteed would also be subjected to this arrangement, this agreement in principle, whereby the bondholder will decide whether to choose the disco option or the power option. But for the part already guaranteed by the World Bank, the present value will be paid to all bondholders today. Okay, why are we getting arrears payments till the 31st December 2023? What about this year? Okay, the reason the arrears will stop in 2023, December 2023, is because this agreement takes effect from 1st of January 2024, which is why the first payment period is July 2024. So your coupon will start to accrue from 1st of January. Then by the end of June, it ends. That's a 6-month period. Then the payments will be made in July. So that is why the arrears payments would end in on the 31st of December 2023. This agreement takes effect from 1st of January 2024. Okay, I think we have another question.
Okay, thank you very much for an articulate presentation. Can I choose not to opt for any of the options?
Okay. The straight answer is no. Not to beat around. The straight answer is no. The options that have been presented to us are the power option and the discount option. No avenue was left for indecisiveness. So you have to either pick any of the two options. But where you choose not to make a decision, I believe that the decision will be made on your behalf, which I don't think any bondholder would want that to happen to him or her. So it is expected, and we are advising that by the time the consent forms are out, just as we've shared the press release and then we've called for this meeting, we'll also escalate. We'll also spread information. We'll send the forms across, and we would expect that decisions will be made as to which of the options is preferable or is preferred. Okay, another question. Can we have a sample with figures inserted and sent to me or all? Oh, yes, please. We've started sending out the calculator to our bondholders. We'll also send it across to you, Mr. Kofi. That has been noted. Once the session is over, we'll send the calculator to you as well for your analysis. So with that, once, okay, maybe let me just quickly open one so as just to run us through what is required on that. So you don't really need to tamper with the formula, so with the calculator. All you need to change on the calculator is just the face value, and everything else changes. Everything else on it would automatically change because we've rigged the Excel with formulas. So I believe an Excel schedule is visible on my screen now. So let's say, for instance, a client is going for a disco option, and then the value of the bond you currently have is $500,000. All I need to do is come to this principal highlighted in light blue, insert the current value of your bond, and every other thing changes. So to give you the actual cash flow. So if you have a 500,000 face value currently, at the end, if you're going for the disco option, you would receive an effectively $455,279.83. While if you go for the par option, 500, 1, 2, 3, you would receive at the end of at the end of the bond, upon maturity, you would have received a total of $622,175.05. So this can be, you can tinker with the calculator, just to know exactly what is applicable to you. We only pick the 100,000 as a base figure for the purpose of this session. If there are any other questions, we would be happy to take them now. And if there are other things that come up after this session, you can always send us an email and they will provide clarity where necessary. Okay, in the absence of any other question, we would like to thank each and every one of you for taking out the time to join. Okay, we have a question here. Okay, can we have the recording? Yes, we'll speak with our IT team on how to get that. Yes, we can. We can get the recording across. Okay, in the absence of any other question, we'd like to thank you for taking out the time to join this session. And we hope that by the time the consent forms are out, you would have decided on which of the options to be adopted. Just before we close, okay, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much also. Thank you so much. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. So thank you. With this, we come to the end of the session, and we wish each and every one of you a productive day ahead. Thank you.